Today's interview is with Cicero Rust, and you're 93, aren't you? He's 93 years old. I think that's wonderful. I'm Linda Howard, and the videographer today is Barney Klein. Now, I want you to describe to me how the territory was of Blanco County when you were a young boy.
I was born southwest of Blanco on September the 28th, 1950. And the school was about a mile and a half from the Clear Spring Ranch, and its name was Centerville.
Centerville.
But they nicknamed it Buzzard Roost.
Buzzard Roost. I've heard of that one.
And then it also has another name up the fence line from the schoolhouse called Stebbins Gap. I went to school there when I was 4.5 years old. I went for about 3 months. Then we moved. But I can remember when we lived there that I rode the old mare named Nell. And of course she's the one who knew what to do. I didn't. But we dipped cattle. And we dipped cattle at a man's name, Richard Meyer. He had a dipping vat, and that was fever ticks.
Okay. Why did they dip cattle? A lot of people don't know why people...
We had to dip every 3 weeks.
Uh-huh. Was that because they got bugs or ticks?
Then at the old board house where we lived, where I was born, we had an old hooky cow that would fight me. And I can remember taking the axe, putting the rope on the handle, and dragging it by that cow. But it didn't do no good.
It didn't do any good. So you were a farmer or a rancher?
Farmer and rancher. I was not in the military, but I raised food and fiber.
What kind of fiber did you raise?
Wool, mohair, cotton.
So you were picking cotton?
I picked my part of cotton. We had some people to help pick cotton when we, in the 23, 22, 24 year, we made pretty good cotton. We hired people to help. I had leaf pads and a cotton sack with an armband on it you put on your shoulders.
When did you start picking cotton? What time in the morning?
For daylight.
And when did you quit?
You picked till after dark. There wasn't no 8 to 5. You worked all day. And then we planted corn for the horses and the hogs and the milk cows, and cane, forage.
Now,
we butchered 4 hogs every winter and 1 calf and put it in sausage.
and you made all your own sausage too, didn't you?
And we put the sausage down in lard. We put the bacon down and the ham in salt, pure salt. And when you dug it out, you used the water in the frying pan first, and then you poured the water away, and then you fried the bacon.
But was it still salty?
No, you could eat it.
You could eat it then?
In fact, you did, because you didn't have much else.
What was a typical meal like?
Now,
What was a typical meal like at your house?
in the Depression, in the 30s, that started in 29. The biggest fire we had was pinto beans and cornbread. But we had chickens, and for breakfast, of course, we'd have eggs. But for about 8 or 9 months in there, the diet was pretty well beans and cornbread.
What do you remember about the Great Depression?
Then we come by there losing the ranch. We couldn't make the payments. My daddy had to put the Ford Model T truck in it to make a payment. And my daddy was a livestock trader of sorts. As Mr. Rhodey in the stockyards in San Antonio, because my daddy wanted to buy a 4-year-old steer. And my daddy knew where they was some. He went between Round Mountain and Atlanta, and Mr. Morrisoff had 60. So Mr. Rhodey bought them, and we got $60 to drive those steers to stockyards in San Antonio. And we owed the Coke Motor Company $40, and that had been for nearly a year. And $40 of that $60 went to Edgar Coke.
And you paid your bill?
Paid the debt.
And you had money left over?
It was nip and tuck throughout those years. But I wouldn't want anybody else to go through something like that. But the education part really did make me a different human.
How far did you go in school?
I went through the 8th grade 3 times. I went to country school 70 years and did good. But then I rode 10 miles to Blanco and it didn't work. So in the middle of the 3rd year, I bought my daddy a cigar when I went through Blanco, gave it to him. I said, I'm through with school. He said, you got to stay. He said, I am not going to do it. He said, the superintendent wants to talk to you in the morning. We'll go talk to him. We did. I told him I was not going back to school, and I didn't.
Well, that's okay. There were a lot of people that didn't go to complete school.
I didn't go back to school. I went to work.
So where did you go to work then?
We cut wood to some sorts, and then we got a Tex-Mex family. His name was August Gonzalez. He had 3 sons. He said he'd cut wood for us, 4-foot wood. He cut a cord for 75 cents. And he cut everything clean. He did. So we hunted a market for it. My brother had an old Chevrolet. I believe the bed was 10 foot and 8 foot wide. We delivered 3 cords of wood stacked in the town of Blanco for $5.
And where did you sell it in Blanco?
Well, I can remember that Percy Brigham in the bank bought 20 cords. Charlie Chris bought 20 cords. Joe Buckner bought 20 cords. G.W. Wall bought some, but I can't remember how much. Felix Smith had a Model T, had a saw, and he kept a saw in it, but that wasn't nothing to us. But he was the one that did it. And Blanco bought the most of that wood. The Tex-Mex family lived outdoors in what we called a wagon sheet over, and they made it.
What did it look like again?
And he had chickens. And that, of course, that helped him some.
What did that wagon sheet you said look like?
That was his house.
Oh, it was like a shed?
And he put rocks against the bottom. And those four people slept in there.
Did they have a ground floor?
They had an
Dirt floor?
outdoor rock where they cooked. And I can tell you this, that they cooked good, 'cause I ate some of it.
Well, what did they cook?
Tortillas,
Uh-huh.
pinto beans, and some kind of a hash, but I can't remember, but it was good.
It kept you coming back for more, huh?
Uh,
So how did you get to own your own land and stuff like that?
My
do your own ranch?
daddy had more goats, had goras. And I'd help shear the home goats, then I'd shear for neighbors. I got 3 cents
3
ahead.
cents for
a
sure.
head.
3 cents a head.
And now, the last goats I had, I give $2.50 a head to have them sheared, because I'm too old to shear.
And you sheared your own sheep.
For my daddy. After I married, well, we were so poor that on the Rust Ranch was a sharecropper's house. The sharecroppers refused to live in it, but after Mama and I married, we lived in it 9.5 years. And that's where we started out. After we had married about 15 years, we bought land. We worked for 50 cents a day. Then we finally got up to 75 cents. That was no 8 to 5. That was still at the dark.
Did you get breaks in between?
We got 1 hour off for lunch, period.
Well, now tell me the story of how you met this wonderful lady and got married.
I met her and her sister at a fair in Johnson City, and I would think it was 1927. And we was always friends. I introduced the older one to my brother, and he eventually married her. But my wife was a cowboy, had a paid horse, and he had his picture taken in the Perdalis River with a horse standing on his front seat, a cowboy with his hat off. My wife and that boy dated for 4 years. I stayed on the sidelines. The cowboy met her at a dance one night and told her flat-footed that he was through. What happened was a man at Harper had 2 daughters. If he'd marry the oldest daughter, he'd give him 1,280 acres of land.
Oh,
And he taken her. And I met her, and we became good friends later in life.
uh-huh.
So Mama sent me word she wanted to talk to me. And I went. So we dated, and her daddy had different ideas. He flat told her that she was going to quit dating me, period. she told me, in Blanco, it's over. What could I do? I sold like a muley bull, I guess. But anyway, time went by. I saw her in Blanco one day. She got me by the hand and she said, I want to get married. And when I got my breath, I said, when? And she said, we have to run off and get married. So we met a little bit along and made plans, and we run off, and Grandpa hit the ceiling, and he said a word with fire on it about that long to two of my friends in Blanco, and later he had to eat it.
What did he say?
He said that she went to 290 and it caught the first car coming either direction and beat what she got. And of course he said some more.
They weren't too nice, were they?
But my mother-in-law never did say too much. I would have married my mother-in-law if I hadn't have got Mama. I'm a mixed grandpa.
But you two did all right. How many years were you married?
69 and a half.
Very good. Very good.
She was a good woman. She worked too hard. I told her after we'd been where we had quite a bit of wills, I said, Mama, quit working. Mama said, shut up. I'll quit when you do.
Sounds like Mama was the boss.
She had more sense than I did. She was a good woman.
I think you did just fine.
And I know we had a good time. But we sure didn't have much.
So when did the boy come along? When did your boy come along?
That was 15 years after we married. And that was it. It just wouldn't work no weather.
Well, he's a pretty good boy. You raised a good child.
I guess the best.
I think he did very well. Now, I want you to think a little bit and tell me what was one of the greatest events in your lifetime that you can remember that happened here in Blanco. Did you always have electricity?
We didn't have electricity until we was married 13 years. We didn't have plumbing until we was married 16 years. We didn't even have an outhouse. My daddy wouldn't let me build one out of cedar. We just went to the open country.
Do you remember ever having to wipe with something other than paper?
Ma'am?
Did you remember having to wipe with something other than paper?
Not really.
I had a corn cob one time.
Plenty of them.
I thought that might be the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about how you got your first car and things like that.
Well, we was married, I guess, a year, and we got a 1932 V8 coupe, wore out. That was our first car. Then we traded it off for a a V8 half-ton Ford pickup. We kept it a while. We used it on the ranch, and it worked. But going back to where, before I was married, I rode bulls and wild horses. And I had a partner by the name of Lee Widener. We rode bulls double. It was ranch rodeo, but it was nothing like we have today. And the bulls we rode were not trained to buck. They were ranch bulls, and if they was horned, the horns had to come down this way, or muley. But we got double. We got $1 if we rode single. If we rode double, we got $2 each. And we learned to come off the bull on the same side, so the spurs wouldn't hang in each other's legs. That was easy money at that time. We broke horses for $5, and eventually we got 10, but most of it was 5. And getting back to Lee Widener, after I was married about 2 years, I quit. I didn't ride bulls. But Lee Widener is buried in the Blanco cemetery. He took his own life, and I never could find out why.
Did that bother you?
Still does. We were good friends. They were raised between Kindalia and Sig Prague's ranch. He had one sister and one brother named Claude, and then another brother, but I forgot what his name was. But I danced with Lee's sister. She was a tough customer.
Really? What made her tough?
She was a tomboy, pure indeed.
I think you like tomboys.
Not bad.
I take it that you went to the Kindalia dance hall over there sometimes.
Yes, we did. Yeah. We went to the rodeos at Kindalia where Red Brant rode the bucking horses. I can remember him and Buck Gorley and Buck Gorley's daddy, I believe his name was Port, and Roy Dale's daddy was named Adolph. And they eventually built a semi-rodeo arena for Roy Dale so he could rope. And Roy Dale had a Blue Road horse. And we became friends way down to his life.
Where, on what place over there in Kindalia did they hold that rodeo?
It was back in the Conifer Cemetery. I met Leonard Lawhorn on one of those roads. He was moving to New Mexico.
Yeah, that's Crabapple.
You was born then.
Yeah.
I bought his shearing machine.
Yeah, that's right, you did.
Sold it to Homer Coffee.
Did you make some money off of it?
No.
Oh.
But it made him happy.
Well, that's good too. That's
Yeah.
good too. It really is. You used to do a lot of shearing yourself.
I used that shearing machine on my own
Describe it for
goat.
me so we can get it on tape here. Tell them what you do to get an animal sheared.
I have a friend in Johnson City that I bribe, and I get it done.
Yeah, but you used to shear too. I watched this process. It's not easy.
His name is Hernandez, and we're good friends with his wife and kids. He taught their kids.
What other activities did you do as a young man?
Go to Blanco on Saturday afternoon and hang out with the boys, sometimes girls.
Did you go to the movies?
Yeah. Red Bluff.
How much did the movies cost you?
The first were 25, then it went to 35, then to 50. And that was Ken Maynard and Gene Autry, Gloria Stewart.
Uh-huh. Did you do anything else on that Saturday that you were in town?
Yeah. Me and the neighbor boys would sometimes go in the pasture and we'd buy a gallon of wine from Oscar Miller on the Little Blanco River and drink about half of it.
Uh-huh.
And then have a headache the next morning.
And still have to work, huh?
But
You have to watch that homemade wine.
it costs $1.50 for a gallon.
$1.50 a gallon. Well, that's pretty expensive in those days, wasn't it?
That's a pretty good buy. But the $1.50 was hard to get to.
Tell me what Blanco looked like back then. What did the town square look like?
It's sure different than it is today. Edward Comfort finally made a cement slab between those two rock buildings and used it for a dance hall. We went there some, but it didn't do much good. Then it was a skating ring, and that did fairly well for a while, and then that played out.
Now, are those the rock buildings on the west side of town?
Well, the theater was built later, but Cage was there, Comfort was there, Masonic Lodge was there, and there was two fires, and I think that was at the start of the Depression. The bank was in the courthouse at first, and then they got where they built a little building and moved across the street.
Do you remember the old courthouse or just the new one?
I can remember my daddy telling me that he went to school in this courthouse upstairs.
Yes.
And I can remember my daddy telling me that they changed the courthouse. A bunch of thieves came from Johnson City and moved it at night and opened up the next morning in Johnson City.
Well, we won't talk about that.
Well, they stole it.
Yeah, they kind of did. Well, we can't say that, though. It was a legitimate vote, okay? Well, you said that you grew sugar cane, correct?
Yeah.
Did you make molasses out of that sugar cane?
We did 2 times. We growed the sugar cane and stripped it and taken it to our neighbor Richard Bensall. He had a press and a vat. We pressed the juice and poured the juice in the vat, built a power on it, and Richard Bensall said when we could put it in buckets. He was a pretty good neighbor.
Did you use that as part of your meals then? Or did you sell that too?
No, we kept every bit of it.
What would you use molasses for?
Put it on butter bread mostly.
Fresh baked butter bread, right?
My mother made homemade bread. And we milked lots of cows when I was a teenager. We take a load of cotton seed to St. Marcus, and on the Fisher Hill at Fisher's store, my mother had to chuck the wagon because it wouldn't pull but so much at a time. She got her finger caught between the chuck and the wheel.
Now, what is chucking a wheel?
That's a rock block or a piece of wood that would get behind the wheel to keep it from rolling backwards.
Oh, okay.
And then Mama's finger was bad shape, and I got promoted to kitchen duty and churned butter. And that lasted for, I believe, 7 or 8 weeks.
Did you have a turning handle on your churn, or did you have one up and down churn?
We had a gallon churn that you turned like that.
How long did it take you to make butter?
I don't know, but we sold 25 pounds of butter a week.
Those were good cows.
It helped pay the bill. We planted Irish potatoes, and several years we sold 2,100 pounds at a time. And that helped pay the payments on the ranch.
Yeah.
We raised mules and horses, cattle. We had a drought in 25.
How long did that drought last?
1 year.
Well, we just came out of a drought.
But that's what started the downhill of the Great Depression. The boll weevil come in after 25, and that hurt us in cotton. And we had to go to something else like oats, wheat, barley, corn, diversifying. And in this goat business, when the mothers had the babies, that was most of the time. The last 3 or 4 days in February, then in March, my job was under the goat shed for 3 weeks. What Mama wouldn't claim the kid, I had to educate her to where she would.
How'd you do that?
Put her in a pen by isolation, and sometimes slap her with a little stick.
Did it work?
Most of the time.
Oh.
In 1929, we turned the goats out too early. They'd been sheared 4 weeks. We take the loss. We owed the bank for the goats, and they said they didn't accept dead goats. That was the debt we had to pay. I take the same lesson in 46. I lost 90 out of 600, and I owed for them.
Would you say the ranching business was very profitable?
Yeah, but you really have to work. I still run the ranch, but I am going to tell you how good.
I think you do just fine.
I do it in the pickup.
Okay.
And I cut wood with a chainsaw.
And at your age, you still do all this?
I cut wood every day on account of my shoulder. I have bad shoulder.
Is that your exercise?
The saw helps, and I have to lay down flat on my back to get relief.
Can I ask you to explain about your mother and father? Were they hard workers?
My daddy and mother planted lots of cotton where I was born.
How many kids were there that had to pick cotton?
Just my brother and I. He was 5 years older than me. My daddy and mother would pick one bale of cotton every other day, and my daddy would gin it at night, and they'd do it again, and they'd do it again. And we were left that place. They had money in the bank, but it all went downhill. Didn't work out.
Were they born here in the United States?
My mother was born up the river from Blanco, where the searchers
Zerchers?
where Roger Searcher lives now. And my daddy was born down the Blanco River, where Ashley has his RV court.
Okay.
We have my daddy's younger brother is buried on that land.
It sounds like you had a very hard life.
My daddy had Henry, Don, Will, Joe, and Ben, and him and Kirby. They had two sisters, Annie Clark. She moved to McAllister, Oklahoma, and homesteaded and made it, but she never did come back. Her daughter did, and the younger sister was Myrtle. She had two boys, and she was in Corpus Christi, run a filling station and whatever. She married Hill, Orland Hill. The older boy married Bud Johnson's cousin. Hula Hill was deputy sheriff for years in Cleburne County. But we got to visit with him. And Aunt Bert could use cuss words real efficiently. And did. But Aunt Annie was just opposite. She was quite hard-working, never did get disturbed. That's the way it was.
Is there anything you would have liked to done in your life that you didn't get to do?
Not really. I just did pretty good. Had to work hard, but just did pretty good. I never did bellyache much. Just did the best we could with what we had. We did. It worked out. When we bought our first land that joined the Rust Ranch, the first land we bought above Blanco, but that time, I wouldn't tell my daddy. It come in the paper. And my daddy brought that old Chevrolet coupe around the corner, and he said, I thought I'm raising somebody that was nuts. But it turned out to be money.
You did pretty good, You are kind of a trader, aren't you? You buy things and sell them and stuff like that. Was that fun, finding things and selling them?
In the 50s, the drought, we fed up and went kibbutz. I got credit in '56, about 1,100 broken by the sheep. And put the puppet with it, and when the spring come, there were 3 livestock auctions in Oz, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Capitol had 2, and I believe Edwards had 1. I had an old 2-wheel trailer with a deck in it, and I'd take 30 mamas and lambs. I paid the debt. In 1 year, I paid the debt. And it was
It
big.
said that you and Mama used to sell cream. How did y'all do that?
We had a cream separator finally, and the Divine Creamery would pick it up. The Divine Creamery one time came and said, "I'm not coming back. Do you want this route?" I said, "Yes, I do." I take that route and went to Nolson's with it. Every Wednesday morning at 1 o'clock right after midnight, I'd pick up the neighbors from where I lived to Spring Branch and deliver it. And then when I bought land at High, I quit that.
Where was the Knowlton's Creamery?
On Cincinnati Avenue in San Antonio. Edward Knowlton, Francis Missouri's brother.
Uh-huh.
I met a whole bunch of them. They were sure nice people. I take cream to St. Marcus sometimes and Fredericksburg. But I finally give up on that. I went into watermelon business in the summertime, 17 years.
And what did you do with those watermelons? Besides eat them?
I sat beside the highway at first and sold them. But then I got educated and I got the grocery store. I made them believe that it's the right thing to buy my watermelons.
Where did you get the watermelons?
Harwood, Luling, Seguin, Stockdale. And I wouldn't buy the first watermelons because they was too high. But on the second picking, I would buy the number 2 watermelon.
Uh-huh.
And it lasted for 2 months. It was a good insect for the ranch. It was slow at the ranch, and so it helped out. And one day I drove to Stonewall. I told Simon Berg I want to buy a load of peaches. He said, "For what?" I said, "I want to resell them." I take them on the highway and sold them.
Did you make money?
Not too much. But when the second trip come, Simon Berg said, "I'll give you $1.60 an hour if you'll work here in the peach shed.
And
And if you'll bring your wife, I'll give her $1.10 an hour." We stayed there 25 years.
wow. Did he increase your pay?
Simon was good.
I go to Berg's Corner even now.
He was my manager, I guess, for 3 years. Charles Schumann was my manager for 2 years. Victor Debler was my manager for 2 years. And Charles Heiss, remember Charles Heiss?
Yeah.
He was my manager for 2 years. And I learned something about peaches. And if it freezes tonight, they'll split seed too.
Are we going to have a frost tonight?
It surely won't freeze tonight, will it?
I don't know. I'm asking you. Do you think it's going to frost tonight?
But under 32 will split seed.
Really?
But 26 will ruin the crop.
Did you have to go out in the fields, the peach orchards, and...
No. All along was a retail manager in the retail room.
Okay.
I sold peaches nobody else could sell. Overripes
Uh-huh.
and such as that. The outside people didn't want nothing to do with them.
Well, how did you do that?
Well, I just had to loosen my tongue.
Go ahead and tell us your secrets now. Come on.
But I never did some peaches away, but the outside people did. Throwed every home. At the height, we throwed 3 dump trucks full of it every day. And I just got so mad I wanted to press it in juice and use it, but they wouldn't listen. But they eventually did.
And you could make jelly out of it too, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we got caught with a bunch of medium peaches. I believe there were 700 half-bushel boxes. Couldn't sell them. So I phoned Miss Jamison in Schulenburg. I said, can you use some peaches to make jelly? For how much? I said, if you come up here, Miss Jamison, we'll negotiate. She coming up there with 2 trucks, and she bought every one of them. We give her a good price, but it beats throwing them away.
Yeah, it does. It does. So you're the one that started that, huh?
She was a good woman. She'd make all kinds of jellies and jams and preserves.
Did you get to know a lot of the growers up at Stonewall?
Yeah.
Did you get to know LBJ?
Lily Bird and Lucy Bates. In the summertime they'd come in. And one day Lady Bird come in there and she got me by the hand and she said, can you hide me? I said, yeah. So me and her went to the cooler. And then she told me, she said, it was a reporter's and she wanted away from them.
Oh, okay.
So she said, can you get me to the car? And I said, yeah. And I got peach box and tore it open. And she held it over and she followed me. She could see my feet.
Uh-huh.
So I take her to a different door and put her in the car.
That's a great story.
So further on in life, she wrote me a note on I don't know what you call it, with her picture. And Lucy, we got to be awful good friends.
She came up there quite often too?
She'd put her arm around me and she'd say, now what kind of peaches am I going to get? But Linda, I never did have any contact with her. And Lyndon, he got to be pretty good. He bought my wife's daddy's estate when he left. He didn't do what he said he would do, but he bought it anyway.
Tell about how you closed the gate on him and the Secret Service.
We were dividing the estate behind the house.
Right.
4 sisters, my brother's wife, and the 2 Wilkie girls.
Okay.
And we had all of our pickups behind the house. And we had the gate open. And directly there was a bunch of big little Cadillacs went through and made dust.
Uh-huh.
He was looking to buy it. And he saw there wasn't nobody there.
Oh, uh-huh.
So I didn't say anything to the girl. I went and shut the gate.
Shut it on Lyndon Johnson.
And when I saw him coming, I stood at the gate. The Secret Service said, we're going through. I said, you're going to run over me. I wouldn't move. Linda got out.
And what did he say to you?
We let him through, but it takes 2 hours. He had to eat. Rust, Bob McNamara,
General Westmoreland.
and the Blanco man.
You got to meet everybody that day, huh?
Yeah. And Lyndon chewed Dale Malachek out for giving the wrong report that there wasn't nobody there.
That's cute. I love that story.
Lyndon gave me a pocket knife.
Uh-huh.
We got to be pretty good buddies. He said, I won't do it unless you give me money. So I had to give him a penny. He knew Mama's sisters. He danced
did.
with them.
Oh, he
And
did?
him and Mama hit it off.
Really?
Yeah. They made it good.
So maybe you had a girlfriend of his too, huh?
He liked Mama, I know that. Which was all right. He wasn't the only one that liked her. She was well liked.
So who did he have in the car again? Westmoreland and who else?
Ma'am,
Who else did he have in the car with him that day? General Westmoreland and who else?
Walter. What was that CBS man?
Oh, Cronkite.
Walter
He was at the house.
Oh, I thought you said that.
Of course, he would have enjoyed that, but there was no message said about that.
And Dean Rusk was in the car.
Oh, Dean Rust too.
Yes.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
Robert McNamara was in there.
When Lyndon's funeral was, what was the man's CBS that me and him talked about so much?
Dan Rather,
No, the other one.
Cronkite.
No, the other one. The one that traveled all the time.
Charles Kuralt.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kuralt,
Charles
yes.
Perrault.
yeah, we talked a long time.
Oh, wow. Did
He
you?
was in the press behind the cemetery,
Uh-huh.
behind the fence.
Well, you're just a celebrity that just don't know he's a celebrity then.
I was just a country boy enjoying myself. Lyndon, he liked women. And Lady Bird knew what to say. They questioned her. Half the people in the world are women. And he
Yeah.
loves them all.
Is that what she said?
That's what Barbara Bush told the reporter when George Bush was in South Texas hunting and taking the beer down there with one of the barmaids.
Uh-huh. She told him the same thing, huh?
They asked her, I believe about 3 days later, something, and she said, I slept with George Bush last night.
Oh my goodness.
Barbara Bush is a good woman. She's smart.
Well, good.
Well,
Really
really
coddling.
but
Was a girl about that tall.
Uh-huh.
Arno Brill hunted on the Rust Ranch, deer.
Uh-huh.
And Nellie Brill come along sometime. And I had a collie dog named Ring. My daddy gave Nellie Brill my dog.
Uh-huh.
And it didn't suit me, period.
So what did you do?
I didn't do nothing but pout.
So Miss Brill got your collie dog.
They come back several times after she had the dog. And she really was good to the dog.
Well, that's good then. That's good. Well, is there anything else that you think I ought to know about your life?
I run out.
You run out.
We broke that thing, we have to quit.